Well, thanks so much for being willing to talk to me, Bethany. If you would start us off in our conversation this evening with the year you graduated and your major, and tell us your full name.
Okay, sure. Hi, my name is Bethany Eldridge. I graduated in 2012 and I was a law, justice, and society major.
Awesome, awesome. And where can we find you these days?
I'm now at University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. I'm just finished my first year of my PhD in educational studies.
Fabulous, fabulous. And when you were a student at Lipscomb and working on senior research for Law, Justice, and Society as your SALT Scholar project, what was the focus of your project?
Yeah, so when I was doing that project, was focusing on Glencliff High School, actually. I studied, at that time, that school had over 60 languages spoken there. And so I was studying their English language learners and the school, and then MNPS at large developed curriculum and helped support that community and that certain population.
Awesome. How did you find that topic as the focus of your research?
That's a good question. I feel like it's just kind of, I was always, throughout my career at Lipscomb and then with different SALT projects, I was always engaged with MNPS schools. And I realized that that particular school had a very different population. And so it would require different needs and different approaches. And so I was just interested in how you address that, how you were able to change what seems like a established curriculum to support different students.
Great. That's really cool, Bethany. I don't
Mhm.
think I knew that that was the focus of your SALT Scholar project. And so I'm
Yeah,
thinking about that because it's just as timely now as it was back then,
yeah.
for sure.
And I think even then I didn't realize like the scope of it. And so like it keeps developing for me today, realizing how important that is.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So you've kind of alluded to getting exposed to different issues and topics. There's one aspect of having done different SALT projects over the course of your Lipscomb experience, but what do you see as the benefits of having done those SALT projects, including senior research? And then what were the benefits at the time, but then also what have been the longer term benefits that you've still experienced post graduation?
Yeah, I think I was thinking of it in like two different ways that it really helped me. And the first way is one, just the research process itself. So being able to design a research and then implement it, like those type of thinking and skills is what I've taken throughout anything I've done. So like just, from doing a literature review to just even developing interview skills, because I interviewed people for my project, like that's stuff that you'll need no matter what you do kind of throughout your next journey. So that was really helpful. And then just the act of engaging with the community as part of your project, I feel like that is what really changed everything for me because it helped me see like what issues are really at play within the education system. And it, because the key things with working with education, really with any kind of community engagement, is that local context matters. There's not like one size fits all solution. And like what's really important to learn is that you're not working for or on the behalf of someone, you're working with the community. And so like doing that through a project helped me shape how I approach any kind of future work. And so that was like long term, but in the moment it helped me see like what was really the issues that like Glencliff had to focus on. Like it wasn't just curriculum. Like I really remembered being impressed with like the the school itself, its outreach to parents and community, because they needed to make sure parents felt included as well. So all these additional programs that they realized that they had to create for their situation.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love those insights,
Mm.
Bethany. That's really helpful.
Yeah.
So you've gotten to do a lot of really neat things after graduation,
Mm-hmm.
but your journey's kind of been maybe not what you expected as you looked out from your senior year into the years past graduation. But you've had some remarkable experiences. So, talk a little bit about what you've done since graduation in terms of experiences and accomplishments, but then also what unexpected things have you had to navigate since graduation?
Yeah. So just even me saying what my journey is, it is what I learned. When I say it, it sounds like a nice straight line and like a nice pretty journey, but it's when living it is very different because and that's part of the fun and part of the fear of the whole journey is that never quite knew what was coming up next, but whatever came up next was um, better than I could have planned, kind of thing. So right after Lipscomb, I went and did a master's at Maastricht University in the Netherlands on the Fulbright scholarship. And there I was studying, the degree was called Society, Science, and Technology, which sounds not in the realm of what my other work was, but it was really a social science approach to technology. And so I applied that to the classroom, technology in the classroom, for meeting different needs, kind of like how ELL learners, how I approach that as well. And so that was a really good experience, obviously, just the fact of it, a whole new school and a whole new country and everything. Coming back, I did not have an exact plan, as that will be the theme. And but through my research through my thesis for that master's, I found a group that was working with education technology, and specifically for those who don't have access to the internet. So I found that group and I just emailed them asking if they needed help. And through that, I got a job and I moved to San Diego for a year helping this group. And so that opened up this whole new realm of thinking about all these different needs that people might need in the classroom that don't have access to internet, besides just in the US, a lot of it in low and middle income countries. And so that is where I really got an interest in working with global education. And so from there, from that job, I was trying to figure out what I was doing next. I was back in Nashville and I got to work with Christin again here at SALT. And then I actually ended up in a job here in Nashville working with schools here. And while at the time I was like, I was wanting to do global education, but I was here back in Nashville. It was a good chance for me to learn things from a teacher's perspective, because I worked a lot with teacher trainings, both within Nashville, but also across the country. And then from there, that's when I decided that if I wanted to do global education, I need to make it more of a focus. So I went to Cambridge University in England for a degree called Education, Globalization, International Development. That's another theme of mine, is that everything has a really long name. But so that's where I got to develop more of the content associated with studying with global education. And from there, that's when I met people within the research community that helped me determine where I wanted to work, do my PhD. And so the advisors at Cambridge were connected to advisors at University of Michigan. And so I ended up there. But even between those two steps, there was kind of a period of me trying to figure out what was the next step, because did I want to do a PhD? Did I want to just work with nonprofits, which has kind of been what I've been doing previously? So in between that time, I was working, I did a consulting work with a microfinance group, which also doesn't seem in line with everything, but through that, I got to learn more about like impact analysis and trying to understand different ways of measuring how a project is going. And so that has now influenced what I'm doing in my PhD.
That's great.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, that idea of microfinance and also impact studies are so central in terms of education policy and reform in other forms of community and nonprofit work. And so I think that's fabulous. I love it.
Yeah, that's what I learned through studying like the impact of microfinance. Is a lot of people use those loans to help pay for their students, their children's education. And so like how it's all tied together and how it's kind of hard to isolate one thing you're studying and how it's all connected.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
So as you've kind of talked about all of those different parts of your journey and adventure since graduation, what are some things that you wish you had known at graduation that might have helped you navigate the following years a little differently or better? Maybe there are things that you couldn't have known at the time, but maybe you wish that you had known.
Yeah, I guess really it's just knowing that things will take time and that's okay. Like, I feel like that applies to any kind of career you're in, like, but especially if you're wanting to work with a community, like a lot of the big part of working with the community is understanding the community. And so that will just take time. And that's a good thing. Like you learn so much along the way. And that's really part of the work. It's not like it's like that cliche, it's not the destination, it's the journey. It's like that applies to working with a community of how what you pick up along the way helps you figure out what you should do with how you should approach your work. Um, and so for me, it's been a journey figuring out what my role should be and like what population to focus on. I had a lot of good intentions and just figuring out where all that overlaps best for yourself is it'll take time, but that's to be expected, and that's a good thing.
That's great. Thanks,
Mhm.
Bethany. What, as you think back on the SALT experiences, and you did many SALT projects when you were an undergrad at
Mhm.
Lipscomb, but what skills or abilities from those experiences have helped you since graduation? So you already talked about research, you talked about interviewing
Mhm.
skills from your SALT Scholar project, and understanding the context of communities, and that's an important part of doing any community engagement or community change work. But any other skills or abilities that you were able to develop while doing a SALT experience?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, um, I guess a lot of it's like social skills too, just who to talk to and how to talk with them. Um, so like, yeah, I did several different projects besides just the senior research, and did like grant writing for a nonprofit, and then just also volunteering at like after school programs. So through all that, you just kind of learn, yeah, how to talk with people, but also like who is involved with what, and so just understanding that system. And I was thinking about how that applied to later issues, or later circumstance of mine was I actually got to travel to Bangladesh to research some stuff with schools there that they were focusing on girls' education. And so through that experience, like I combined it with my SALT experience, how I had learned how to I was there for several weeks and I just like listened for most of the time. And then at the end, what I presented was totally different than what I thought I was going to be there for. So just being able to absorb like what is actually around you and applying it to your work.
That's great.
But,
That's great. So, my final question
mhm.
is any words of advice for current students that you would share?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of related to what I wish I knew is just to be open with what comes next. Like there's no straight line, there's not a perfect trajectory, um, and and yeah, to be open to that freedom. I've just kind of jumped around to what the opportunities have been presented to me, and it's been yeah, I've enjoyed everything I've done. And I wouldn't want to change it because of how it has shaped me, but shaped my work as well.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Bethany. It's so good to see you and great to talk to you.